will actually be able to use them next year. And I would also like to, move on next page. I'd also like to thank all of our judges that some of you have interacted with, who have put in the time to listen to all your PDRs. I greatly appreciate all the time and effort they have put into this. Without all our volunteers, this competition would not happen. All right, thank you. Jim?
All right, let me start my video back up again. There we go. Okay. So, thank you, Ivan. Before we get into team recognition and rankings, we are very, very excited, very pleased to have with us today a special guest to give us some encouraging words and his thoughts. So with that, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Major General Charles F. Bolden, Jr. Charlie Bolden was the 12th administrator of NASA, nominated by Barack Obama and confirmed in 2009. During his tenure until early 2017, Charlie oversaw the safe transition from 30 years of space shuttle missions to a new era of exploration focused on full utilization of the International Space Station and space and aeronautics technology development. Under his watch, NASA's support of commercial space transportation systems for reaching low Earth orbit enabled successful commercial cargo resupply of the space station and significant progress toward the return of the capability of American companies to launch astronauts from American soil. And we're seeing a lot of that progress today. General Bolden's 34-year career with the Marine Corps included 14 years as a member of NASA's astronaut office. He's been in orbit 4 times aboard the space shuttle between 1986 and 1994, commanding 2 of the missions and piloting 2 of the others. His flights included deployment of the Hubble Space Telescope and the first joint US-Russian shuttle mission, which featured a cosmonaut as a member of his crew. Charlie attended the US Naval Academy, earning a Bachelor of Science degree in electrical science, and he also has a Master of Science degree in systems management from the University of Southern California. Charlie, it's great to see you again. Thank you so much for being here. I'll turn it over to you. Take it over.
Thank you so very much. And Ivan, thank you also. And thanks to the whole team at AAS and at NRL. And to all the participants, those of you who are finalists, let me say, add my note of congratulations to you. As I was looking through the list of countries represented, and I noticed that there are 209 different participants online with us this morning. I think that's mind-boggling. But as I looked through the countries that were listed as participants, I was really, really happy to see that I have actually visited every single country on the list but 2. And that's Turkey and Iran. So for those of you who have teams in those 2 countries, if you're listening, send me an invite, because I want to add those countries to my list. I thought what I would do today, because this is a very difficult time for all of us. The fact that we're not all able to be gathered down at Virginia Tech out in the field launching rockets says that it's not normal. So I would try to offer just a few quick words of encouragement to you. And the way I chose to do it today is to talk about some things that didn't go quite right, that I have been associated with, in hopes that they will inspire you to keep plugging away, because even though we're not able to get together the way that all of us had hoped for this year's competition, there will be better days. So let me tell you a story about something in my tenure as the NASA administrator, working for President Obama for almost 8 years. One of my favorite projects was a program called Project Morpheus. And it was a methane-powered lunar, it was a prototype for a lunar lander that would it would be controlled by methane engines, but it was tested by a team of young engineers and students from around the country. And it was one of these projects where we actually engaged every NASA center to contribute to this, because it was very low cost. The lander itself was single string, so it meant there were no backups, there was no redundancy or anything. And the team worked for a number of months down at the Johnson Space Center where they came together, and they did tethered launches and recoveries of this thing until they felt they were ready to go down to the Kennedy Space Center to actually try a free flight. And everything had gone really well. And they moved the project down to the Kennedy Space Center, and they were at a place where we used to land the space shuttle called the Shuttle Landing Facility. They had set up a big launch and landing pad on the end of the runway. And we had invited the press in. So international press was there to see this thing, although it was just a little prototype and not a big project. I think we may have spent 14, maybe $20 million on the project by then. And so they went through the countdown and everything, and they had a successful free flight the day before. But as they progressed through the count, they went to 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The methane engine fired, Morpheus lifted off, and before it got too high, it went crashed back onto the runway, and it just burned to a crisp. The next week, it was on the front page of Aviation Week and Space Technology as NASA failure and everything. But as soon as that happened, because I was watching it on video, I got on the phone to the guy who was the program manager. I said, hey, look, tell your team I'm really proud of them, because we all had been briefed on how this was going to go, and we knew that this outcome was a possibility. Tell them it's okay to feel bad now, but I want them to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, get back in there, and we'll get back in there and we'll have a successful launch. And sure enough, that's what happened. They worked, took the project back to the Johnson Space Center and worked for several more months. And Project Morpheus ended up being a very successful prototype program for us. And it later was integrated with something that was called ALLHAT, the Autonomous Landing Hazard Avoidance Technology. And ALLHAT, you all will get to see in operation one way or another coming up, because as we return to the moon, a lot of the systems that are used to navigate down into a landing site essentially comes from the ALLHAT program. So out of failure, a great success. Second story I'll tell you involves me and one of my dismal failures. I was 1980, I joined the astronaut office in Houston, Texas, and I was assigned to my first flight crew in 1984, 85. And my commander was a guy named Hoot Gibson, who is a notorious, very famous astronaut, test pilot and everything. But we were training, and the pilot works most of the systems in the space shuttle, and it's pretty complicated. And I was really having a hard time learning everything, particularly the area which was supposed to be my area of expertise, electrical systems. And I went to Hoot and I said, Hoot, I don't know whether I'm going to learn all this stuff. We were about 6 months out from flight. And he said, look, don't worry about it. All of us go through this. Just keep plugging away at it. The light bulb will come on one of these days. And sure enough, within days, I finally started to get really comfortable. And so we went to the simulator one day, and I really wanted to impress my crew with how good I was. You can tell this is getting ready to go down a bad road here. And we were in the simulator. It was a standalone session for our 5 crew members. And we were going to do what we call an ascent sim, or launch simulation. So you went through getting into the vehicle and strapping in, going through the launch countdown, and then finally launching. And it ended when you got to orbit. And so we went through the count just like we had done with Morpheus, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We lifted off, and the simulators was just shaking and everything. And all of a sudden, I saw an alarm go off, and it was a symbol that said we had lost one of our main engines. The shuttle, some of you will remember, had 3 main engines on it and then 2 solid rocket boosters. So losing one engine might not keep us from getting to orbit. So we kept going while we evaluated whether or not we should keep going up or whether we should turn around and come back and land it at the Kennedy Space Center. But I had an emergency to work. And so I wanted to demonstrate how good I was to my crew. And I quickly diagnosed the problem, determined that we had had an electrical bus failure. The solution for that problem was to isolate the bus so we wouldn't lose another one and run the chance of shutting down a second engine. And so I told Hoot, my commander, I said, hey, I've diagnosed it. We've got an electrical bus short. I'm going to isolate that bus so that we don't have any more problems. And he said, okay. And I turned my back to everybody, and I went over and I grabbed a switch that I thought was for the bad bus, did not consult with anybody else on the crew, flipped the switch to off, and it got really quiet. We had lost the second main engine because I shut down a good electrical system. So as we're drifting back down into the Atlantic Ocean and we crashed into the water and died figuratively, I was really quiet and the cabin was quiet, and Hoot reached over and touched me on my left shoulder and he said, "Charles?" I said, "Yes, Hoot," sheepishly. He said, "Did I ever teach you Hoot's Law?" I said, "No, Hoot, you did not." He said, "It goes like this. No matter how bad things are, you can always make them worse." And so I took Hoot's Law to heart. And after that, every flight I flew, we always coordinated among the crew. We always reminded ourselves that if we were going to be successful, we did everything as a team, and that we never took an action. There was nothing that was so important in the space shuttle that we had to do something absolutely right now, that we always had time to get together with another crew member, make sure that we understood what the failure was, first of all, and even if we had a failure, because sometimes you got an indication and it was data, it was not a failure at all. So teamwork became really essential, and that was a critical lesson for me. It was Hoot's Law that taught me about the critical necessity to work as a team. And all of you, those of you who are here today who will be recognized, hopefully you learned that. And that's how you got to be finalists, was the critical importance of working as a team. And I want to close by telling you just one more little story. And it's a story about particularly in this day and age and this time when there's a lot going on in all of your lives, but also a time when we should be thinking about other people and what we can do to work better together as humanity, not just as separate people. But Nkosi was a young boy who was born in a place called KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. And his mother had the dreaded disease AIDS, and she figured that Nkosi, through his birth, would probably be infected with AIDS also. And this happened to be a time, this was in the early 2000s, and it was a time when the president of South Africa did not believe in AIDS. He thought it was hoax. And so he really did not give any support to fighting the disease in the country of South Africa. But Nkosi's mother had talked with a young white woman by the name of Gail Johnson. And she asked Gail if something happened to her, if she would take in her son and adopt him as her own and raise him. And Gail promised her that. And shortly after Nkosi was born, his mother died, and Gail adopted him as she promised and began to raise him. And people knew, they recognized in Nkosi from the moment he could speak that he was not a normal child. He was infected with AIDS, but he was an inspiration in his village and everywhere. And he was always a positive force. He was always telling people, we need to do this, we need to do that. And he was really sick, and people wondered about him all the time. And an American writer named Jim Wooten heard the story of Nkosi, went over to South Africa and met him, and kind of talked to him. And he said, I don't understand why you do what you do. And Nkosi said, we've got to do the best we can to bring people together and make sure that we make this world a better place. He said, I may be poor, I may be Black, and I may have AIDS, but in this world, we're all the same. So Jim Wooten returned to the United States, wrote a small book called We Are All the Same, the story of Nkosi Johnson. And it's a small paperback. You can get it from Amazon, or you can get it anywhere and read Nkosi's story. But shortly after coming back, Jim Wooten got word that Nkosi was on his deathbed, that he really had gotten much, much sicker and he wasn't going to live. So he flew back to South Africa and went into the hospital, and he sat by Nkosi's bedside, and he said he could see Nkosi there, this small, brittle Black face with sores and pus all over everywhere. But he had this beautiful smile on his face, these wonderful white teeth smiling through this Black face. And he was barking out orders. We need to do this. We need to get that done. And he said, Jim Wooten looked at him and he said, Nkosi, stop. You're going to die. And Nkosi kind of looked up at him and he smiled. He said, yep. He said, you could die today. And Nkosi said, yep. He said, well, I don't get it. What makes you tick? People say you don't want to take your medicine. You never cry out in pain. You never want anybody to do anything for you. What's the story, Nkosi? I just don't get it. And Nkosi looked up at him and he smiled. He said, Jim, you do all you can with what you have, in the time that you have, in the place that you are. And Jim Wooten said he looked at Nkosi and he was taken aback. He could not believe it, that this young boy who was on his deathbed was that concerned about everybody else in the world. So I would encourage all of you, as you go through what you may feel are difficult times in your life, do all that you can with what you have in the time that you have in the place that you are. God bless all of you, and congratulations again to the winners. And I look forward to meeting many of you in the future. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jim.
Charlie, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. That was amazing. I loved watching the Morpheus program all the way through, and Hoot Gibson's he's a character. He's a lot of fun, and inspiring words, and all about teamwork, and hopefully that will register with all of our competitors. Thank you again, Charlie, very much. That was fantastic. Okay, so now let's get into the meat of this event. Ivan, I'm going to turn it back over to you to announce our top 5 teams. So start your video, Ivan, and there we go.
All right, the big moment. Are you waiting for the graphics to come up? All right. Okay. All right, the top 5 teams. All right, in 5th place, we have team number 2280, Team Thor from Mexico. Congratulations. All right, moving on to 4th place. All right, we have team number 7840, Team Grizu 263 from Turkey. Congratulations. All right, 3rd place, we have team, let's see, 3rd place. Issues with the graphics. All right, 3rd place, team 4920, Manchester CanSat Project from United Kingdom. Congratulations. All right, after the applause, move on. 2nd place, we have team number 1320, Team Narantaka from Indonesia. Congratulations. I think this is the first time Indonesia has placed in the top 5. Very good. All right. And the big one, 1st place, team number 1360, UHMC Team Onipa from Hawaii, USA. Congratulations, guys. Very good. And this is the final rankings for the 33 teams that have been able to participate. We will continue on. This slide will come back up at the end of our presentation and stay up for about 5 minutes before the broadcast is terminated. Jim, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ivan. Yeah, congratulations to all the top 5 teams. Congratulations to all of you, and congratulations to Hawaii. That's awesome. Okay, so with that, let's see. Thank you again very much to Ivan for all of the fantastic work you've done on this event. You're truly the driving force behind this whole thing. We truly appreciate everything you do. Thanks also to the AAS staff, Sarah Robertson, Patrick Ruin, for all your hard work on this. Sarah, we'll get you out there to the launch pad next year, and we'll all have a lot of fun. And finally, congratulations again to each and every one of our CANSAT teams, especially UHMC, very well done. One logistical point of order, all the teams should look for communications from AAS on getting you all your certificates of participation, as well, and the awards for the top 5 teams. So we'll be in touch on that soon. Again, congratulations to all of the teams. We really, really hope that we'll be launching rockets next year. So stay tuned for details on the 2021 CANSAT competition. Thanks again to all of you for being here. Charlie, thank you so much for your great words. We loved having you here. We appreciate it. And unless anybody has anything else, that concludes our event for today. So thank you all again. Take care and be well. Bye-bye.